Welcome, everyone, to this episode of, what are we calling this? You Choose the Bears Mock Draft. I had this idea of having a lot of people who watch our shows and some of the people who are a part of the network to submit their mock drafts. And let's then talk about it, evaluate them, and create this kind of barroom atmosphere with people who generally are not a part of the network. So I'm really excited about what we're doing here tonight. And let me quickly start with some introductions. Our first man up is Jordan Silveria. Did I pronounce your last name correct, Jordan?
It's Silvera, but all good either way, Aldo. Thank you.
I wanted to throw that Spanish flair into it. How are you, my man?
I'm blessed, man. Thank you so much for having me on and looking forward to getting this kicked off and talking draft prospects.
All right. The next guy up on our lineup is Aaron Current. Aaron, how are you, my man?
What's going on, brother?
What a familiar voice you have, man.
Well, I hope people know it.
Oh, yeah. Well, come on. The Aaron Current Show every Sunday morning, also known as the Tailgate Show. You do a great job on that show. And Jordan's going to be a guest on that show on Sunday. So that's going to be a can't miss episode. Our next person on board is Don Mckendree. Don, how are you, my man?
I'm doing good. Although, how are you?
I'm doing great. Don is a former Chicagoan who now lives up in Iowa. We'll have to set you up with Johnny Santucci. He's moved up there recently, and maybe the two of you guys can get together and say nice things about me.
Oh, sure. You won't say anything bad about you anyway.
And then here's a guy that I see in the chat room on practically every show, if not every show that we have. It's my man, Skox. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. Great to talk some draft. And, yeah, got some Bulls playoff tonight. Ready to go.
I noticed you were wearing a Bulls shirt, and so what do you think their chances are for tonight?
You know, we put up a fight a few days ago, but I think we're going to come into Milwaukee. We're going to put up a fight. Let's make it competitive, you know?
There you go.
Cover that 10-point spread tonight.
Yeah.
Please. I'm down to almost $0 on DraftKings.
They covered it in game one, so.
Yeah, indeed. All right, next up is Tony, the pod boss. Tony, how are you, my man?
What's going on, fellas, man? I'm looking forward to this one with the draft. You know, a week away now? So I'm excited about this one. I can't wait.
Tony, I don't know if it's the camera angle or anything, but it looks like we could plug you in at left tackle.
Hey, man, listen. I'm looking at the camera and I'm like, hold on, I need to get this together.
There you go. So you're more of a tight end than a left tackle. Is that what you're saying?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
He wants to catch the tutties.
Yeah.
All right, next up is Sanjin, also going by Sonny. Sonny, how are you?
Good. How's it going, Aldo? How are you guys?
Going great, man. So this is our cast of characters. By the way, Sonny, are you here from the Chicago area?
You know what, Aldo? I used to live in Chicago practically my entire life, and I just moved to Michigan maybe 2 years ago.
Okay.
So I'm in Michigan now.
On purpose?
So I'm in the Lions country, baby. I'll be talking mad shit because I can talk mad shit.
I love it.
We gotta have you shut up, Don Burr.
Good luck with that.
Right? Hell yeah.
Yeah, we have to hook you up with Don Burr. I'll send you a package.
Yeah.
I'll send you a package. It'll be ticking when you receive it, but don't worry about that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Just open it up.
It'll explode when Juan opens it up.
Yeah, for sure.
Don, we love you. As we've always said here, we really enjoy Don coming into our chat room and talking crap with the guys and talking shit. You know, I love to personally poke fun at him, but he seems like a really good guy, despite the fact that he was raised incorrectly and he's a Lions fan.
Exactly.
All right, guys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to present everyone's a mock draft, and then we'll have an open discussion, either ask some questions, make comments on people's draft. But what I want to do first, though, is talk to Sonny about the needs that he thinks, because Sonny has told me I don't really follow college football, but I love the game. I love the draft, and I love the Chicago Bears. And so here's what I think this team needs and deserves to get onto the roster. So, Sonny, I'll turn it over to you and let us know what you think about the Bears' needs.
Originally, I mean, I honestly, I don't know which way Ryan Poles would go, but if I was in charge, when I look at that offensive line, and I would love some feedback from you guys, there's a whole bunch of, like, oh, if that guy works out, we'll be fine. And if this guy works out, we'll be fine. And if this guy works out, we'll be fine. And it just gives off such a vibe of 2019. I don't know if you guys remember when we were going into 2019, and everybody in Chicago was like, oh my God, if Mitch takes that next step, Anthony Miller had a great rookie year. He's going to have a great sophomore year. Tariq Cohen, he's going to take that next step. Allen Robinson had 1,000-year season. He's going to take that next step. I almost see the same thing. There's a whole bunch of unknown. Like, we're really just putting a whole bunch of weight on Larry Bourne working out, and which I think he'll work out in Devin Jenkins, who I hope he'll work out. I have no questions about his play style and, just how furious he is in the game. Concern I am, and is, there's Don Burr.
Oh,
The concern that I have, and this is just coming from personal in my life, man, like my mom had back surgery. Let me tell you something. That doesn't get better. I'm sorry. So to me, that's a concern. And I can't just go into the season like, oh, we're all cool. That's what I'm saying. We're just going into the season with this offensive line that, like, man, he was questionable last year. Now we're really going into this year where, damn, it really seems a lot of questionable. And we need a lot of these guys to, like, work out. And we really don't know if they will. And at the same time, like, a lot of fan base is expecting Fields to take this next step, which, I would love to see. Personally, we can get into conversation with about Fields later if you want, Aldo, about what goals I would like for him to see. But to stick into the point, my first point would be, it seems that he would be offensive line, one of the first picks out of the two that we have. So I would love to hear your guys' opinion on that.
Well,
Yeah, what do you guys think?
I want to say, first of all, I got to get this dude on a show consistently, because he has that freaking voice, dude. If you don't have the Dub Bears skit voice, I ain't never heard one in my life. I'm telling you. I love your voice, Sonny.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, bro. Thanks, man.
But to go on with the offensive line, obviously it's a huge concern. We've got Dakota Dozier penciled in at right guard right now, and that is a huge concern. I think Devin Jenkins, I've heard both sides. Greg Gabriel says, I think he could play left tackle. And you also hear, Neil and Danny are adamant that he cannot. So I think we got to let our coaches see what they think. And like you said, the back is very concerning. But some of the guys that a lot of people were begging for was like Teron Armstead, who, if you guys are, this is a draft show. Teron Armstead was a 3rd-round pick out of Arkansas Pine Bluff, so you can find those guys in the draft. Bates from the Bills that we offered, he was an undrafted free agent. You know what I'm saying? So these dudes can be found, and you're gonna have free agency still going after the draft. So I've chosen to be patient with Poles, and we'll see how it goes. But O-line is a big concern.
On that account,
yes.
Sorry, go ahead, Tony.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm not as concerned, partly because of that reason. I think, if there's any draft, where you're not as concerned, I think this is that draft. There's tons of talent, tons of depth when it comes to receiver and O-line in this draft. You talk about guys that aren't really being talked about as much. Zach Tom. Later in the draft, Cam Jurgens, like, there's so much depth on the offensive line in this draft. And then we're talking about Ian Cunningham and Ryan Poles. These are 2 offensive linemen. They know what they're looking for in this outside run zone scheme. So I'm not as concerned. They're going to be running the ball a lot, and they're going to use play action a lot. So I'm not as concerned because I think they can still find depth later in the later rounds. So yeah, that's my take on that one.
We might even get an I formation here.
We signed a fullback, so it sounds like it.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm
maybe.
excited.
Yeah, maybe.
You want to pump
Oh,
Bears
really?
fans
Good
up?
fullback.
You sign a middle linebacker and a fullback, bro. We're
Yeah, Aaron, on your point earlier when you mentioned free agency, I know Aldo. I know you always talk about it almost every show, but he's going to be free agent. Although, what's his name, Quentin Nelson. But I see Colts keeping him. But there's a lot of very good offensive linemen hitting the free market next year. That's if they hit free market. A lot of these teams will probably keep them. So
It will be shocking if the Bears don't invest heavily in free agency next year, for a couple of difference makers, which is really what they have not done this season, which I totally understand. You got to build this, you got to rebuild brick by brick, and why spend heavily on one brick when there are so many needs across the board? Now, unfortunately, we all know that the 3-tech is so important to this cover 2 defense that Eberflus runs, and the Ogunjobi thing didn't work out. That hurts. How badly does that hurt, Jordan, in your estimation?
It's funny that you bring that up, Aldo, because I may get ratioed for this. That was probably my least favorite move of the offseason when that was announced, was the Ogunjobi signing. I just thought it was rather rich for a guy that's a lot of boom and bust. I mean, don't get me wrong. When he's on, he's explosive. He's in the backfield playing disruptor. But for whatever reason, it was very sporadic in his time on and off. And then run defense, I think that he felt like he was probably taking I'm going to play the run to the pass. But oftentimes I felt like he would get washed down and ultimately allowing yards up the middle. So I wasn't a huge Ogunjobi fan, and, call it luck, if you will, charm, but I was actually pretty excited to hear we're just going to nix that deal and move on.
I see a couple of people who may not disagree. Anyone want to speak up and get into a verbal fisticuffs with Jordan?
Yeah, really. Oh, you want to go down?
go ahead. I don't want to steal everybody's show, bro.
Yeah.
I got my show Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday, man.
Got the
Yeah.
Eric Curran. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Scott.
so- Yeah, really quick. Free agency opens, right? First hour, and boom, the Bears are up. And it's a defensive signing, which is, I understand why they did it, right? 3-tech, everything that Jordan said. But I would have liked to have that targeted focus more on the offense with a new regime, bringing in all these new guys. So that was a bit of a surprise to me, just as a reaction. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Don, were you disappointed? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tony. I think you were going to speak up.
No, I was gonna say I definitely disagree with that one, just because of how important the 3-tech is in this defense. They're definitely going to be doing a lot of rotational players, but at the end of the day, that 3-tech is probably the most important, position on this defense. You're always going to overpay in free agency. That's just the nature of free agency at the end of the day. But when you get a player who is explosive as he is, in my opinion, that's a can't miss player. Because a lot of times it's only going to be, 4-man fronts. So you have to get pressure up the middle. That's very, very crucial. So when you had a guy like Larry, that's definitely a player you want to sign. So I was kind of disappointed with the foot injury, but I didn't have a problem with that signing at all.
And Don, you had a thought?
I wasn't a huge fan of that signing. I am of the mind that this year is about Justin Fields. It's about developing him and finally producing an offense to score points. I would dump as much resources as I can in the trenches. And yes, you put people on the defense. Trenches are important. But I want that offensive line rebuilt.
Yeah.
So I'm spending most of my draft. I don't know about the one you're going to show tonight. I don't remember. But I'm drafting 2 tackles, a couple of guards when I get the opportunity to do so.
That seems to be the prevailing thought, is let's do whatever is possible to help Justin Fields get on the right track as a franchise quarterback. And that means protection and weapons. So with
Right.
that, let me lead into our very first mock draft, and we'll start off with Jordan's mock. Jordan submitted 3 mocks, and he told me, surprise me and pick one that you want to talk about. So, Jordan, here's the surprise, the one I picked for you.
Thank you, Aldo. All right, so I'll give a quick little rundown on. I guess we'll go through round 3. So we're starting off with pick 43. I did make an original trade with the Falcons. I do want to touch on that briefly. I think that's a pretty likely scenario. You're talking about a Falcons team that signed Marcus Mariota to a 2-year deal as kind of a stopgap, and there's a potential there that they would be looking to move up ahead of Seattle, who holds pick 40 and 41. So they present a good trade partner to move back 3 or 4 spots. Not a big deal. And the reality is, when you're sitting at pick 39, I would hope that Poles, Cunningham, and company have a few players that they are looking at as potential picks at 39, and they feel okay moving back 2, 3, 4 spots and still getting one of their guys. And so what that nets you is ultimately you're moving back 4 spots and you're picking up a second-round pick at 58 with the Falcons, who are flush with picks, considering some of the trades that they made with Julio last year to the Titans, as well as Matt Ryan to the Colts. We're leading it off with taking corner, Roger McCreary. Anybody that's in the chat probably knows I kind of go back and forth with resident scout Greg Gabriel and Roger McCreary. I think he's a player that can play inside and out on the perimeter. Greg seems to think he's a nickel only. I got news for Greg. I tend to think that's totally fine. If you want to put him at nickel and play Thomas Graham, who's a heady, instinctive player off ball, and letting him read and basically crash the passing lanes, and you want a scrappy player like McCreary in the nickel, I don't mind that. In a league where you're running 11 personnel as the base package and you have a nickel out there all the time, not a problem to draft a nickel in the second round. Moving along, Logan Hall, pick 48. Talking to Tony here, who's saying that he kind of wishes that he had that explosive figure in Ogunjobi. That's my replacement for it, and it's at a lot cheaper of the price. You're talking about a special archetype there, a guy that doesn't come around frequently, a guy who's 6'6", can add the weight to become a 290, 295 player, who obviously Coach Flus is very familiar with in DeForest Buckner. And where did DeForest Buckner come from? San Francisco, where they also drafted Eric Armstead, very similar player. So you get that 3-tech who's long, lanky, but also generates good pass pressure. And then a little bit of a surprise here. I know that, with all the different linebacker signings, Matthew Adams, Nick Morrow, things like that, you're looking at Trey Anderson and going, what's he doing here? I just can't pass up the potential of what Trey Anderson can be. And I got to give props to Tony here. Tony's the one that originally kind of put me onto Trey Anderson's name. But after watching his film, he's raw, definitely lacks in some of the instinctive parts of the game, things that you can hopefully coach up and get him to see. But as far as athletically, and I know that this is high praise, I look at him and you're watching what athletically looks like Brian Urlacher playing on the field at granted, a very low college level, not in the SEC or anything of that sort. But you bring him in and have him as your Mike and ask Roquan to be the Lance Briggs Will. And all of a sudden you've got basically firecrackers at the linebacker core, and then you have Logan Hall kind of pressuring up the front like a DeForest Buckner. And then finally we get to round 3, pick 71, Alec Pierce. No surprise here. Anybody that follows me on Twitter knows that Alec Pierce is basically my preferred X for the Chicago Bears. That's over George Pickens. That's over pretty much every X option outside of Drake London. And Alec Pierce is a guy that I just believe is definitely has room to grow, but certainly fills the most well-rounded needs of the Bears. Deep speed, vertical athlete, jumps and attacks at the catch point to catch the ball. Sinks his hips really well on more developing routes such as in-breakers, digs, things of that sort. And I mean, look no further than any of his tape, and particularly the college football playoff game against Alabama, where that deep speed was scaring off Nick Saban's defensive backs and giving him free releases all game. And unfortunately, the offensive line for Cincinnati didn't allow my QB1 Desmond Ridder to get Alec Pierce the ball. So that is my round 2 and 3 mock draft.
Excellent work. And Tony, tell me why you turned him on to Anderson. What are your thoughts about that linebacker?
Yeah, so some of the things he said, Anderson is a big guy. He's very fast. When you look at a guy, in this defense, you want to will. In my opinion, I felt he was pretty instinctive. I felt he can go from sideline to sideline with no issue. He's a player that like he's very smart. He's interchangeable. He can play either position. He can play will. He can play strong. He can play Mac. This guy can play all over the field. He even played safety in college as well. You're talking about a guy that played safety, quarterback, and linebacker in college. So he's just one of those guys that kind of like Eberflus is looking for guys that are interchangeable. They're like that Swiss Army knife. You can pretty much put them anywhere. Just ball out playmakers. I think he's one of those guys.
Anybody
I
else
like-
want to? Please go ahead, Don.
I like Christian Harris also, but Anderson, I think, is a although he's got less experience as a linebacker, his measurables are outstanding, and they're exciting. So I like him, and I pick him a lot in my drafts.
And Jordan, if you can comment on those later round offensive linemen that you chose, Lascivious Smith and Cade Mays. What are your thoughts on those two guys and how they can help the Bears?
Absolutely. So, and I know that there's probably a ton of concern here about, well, that offensive line needs fixing. What are we doing not drafting anybody till round 5 and 6, respectively? I think that there's ways to attack that in free agency. You look at, and I won't get too deep into it here to answer your question, although, but, Dwayne Brown's still out there. You look at a season like last season where Charles Leno was released after the draft, Morgan Moses. These are guys that are available after the draft, so I'm not too worried about adding to the offensive line and still developing young depth. So Lascivious Smith out of Virginia Tech is played right next to Brock Hoffman, their center. Good people mover, really generates power off the ball and a great run blocker. Somebody that I think is ideal and athletic in the way that we are looking to play the wide zone. And a player that ultimately I think Orion Polson and Ian Cunningham would take a liking to as somebody who's got a little bit of a nasty demeanor and something to prove. And then you talk about Cade Mays, 5-star prospect coming out of high school, spent his first few years at Georgia, transferring over to Tennessee, where his brother, a fellow offensive lineman, plays. And Cade Mays is also a nasty demeanor player who gets some movement off the ball, but I really also like his technique in the run game. So those are my two offensive linemen there at the back end. And really what that's targeting is filling in that hole at right guard. You have Lascivious and Cade coming in and saying, okay, best man plays, go ahead and compete, and best man will come out and be starting at right guard, presuming that you don't fill that hole in free agency, or you don't have one of the tackles like a Tevin or a Larry move in at guard. That is your right guard options.
Right. Yeah. Hey, the Cade Mays pick, maybe I'm a little SEC biased, but I fucking love that pick. Grabbing him late like that. And he maybe it's the school that he went to, but he reminds me of who the Chiefs picked last year. Trey Smith. Trey Smith. He reminds me exactly of him. They were both highly touted coming out of high school. They both played their butts off at Tennessee. They had I think with Smith, it was an injury concern that dropped his draft stock, and I think that would, if we can grab him there would you get him in the 6th round? I really think that's a plug and play right guard for us in this offense. And the Alec Pierce pick, I love the Alec Pierce pick as well. Almost every mock draft I've done, I've tried to wait for pick 71, and he's never there. And it breaks my heart. So even if we grab him at like 48, I'd be okay with it. Everything that Greg said about him on his show, and he's got size, he's got speed, he's got hands. He played linebacker a little bit, so he's just got special teams ability. I mean, what's not to like about Pierce? I really don't know. And
I have to admit, I agree, Aaron. I'll be quick, Aldo, but I think that I have to admit that I took a few liberties here, because if we're being honest, fellas, guys like Alec Pierce aren't going to be there at 71. It's just a situation when you have that athleticism, you have the burst that he shows on tape. Sitting there and taking a swing and betting that guy is going to be there at 71, I think that this is something that I really would like to keep in mind for anybody listening, is that if you're willing to take a guy at 48, what's the difference between taking him at 48 and 71? Why wait? Unless you feel supremely confident that that guy is going to be there at 71. I don't know. You have that deep cut like a Zachary Thomas tackle at San Diego State, and you're like, nobody knows about this guy. Then sure, go ahead and take that trial. But with a guy like Alec Pierce, his name is rising through the ranks. And it's the reality with this wide receiver market and free agency that it's the cheaper, more wise financial option to draft a guy. And you're seeing names like Christian Watson and George Pickens being floated into the first round now. So what does that do? That brings guys like Alec Pierce right up. So I think if it's 39, if it's 48, if that's the guy you like, take him.
I don't know, guys. Maybe I'm a little too petty. The moment I saw that he was a Packers fan, I took him off my board. I'm sorry.
Hey, Anthony Davis is a Packers fan, so I can't hold that against anybody. I mean, he's a Kentucky guy, so I love him.
He broke my heart with that one.
All right, Don.
Hey, Aldo, can you put his draft back up there again for a second?
You got it.
The hard. Yeah. I love this draft. A lot of things about it. The one thing I would not have taken McCreary. Okay. Of course, it all depends who you have on the board, but I wouldn't take McCreary anywhere on the board.
Let's hear it.
And it's not that he's that bad of a player. It's just that, as I said, to get on, to be picked as a defensive player this year, for me, in a draft, you have to be really special. Okay, Logan Hall is special. Anderson, special. Okay, Smith is a wonderful value there, And, I also like JT Woods as a safety when you're picking, in the fifth round. I tend to go a little bit differently, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But basically, I do. I love your draft, except for I don't like McCreary.
Well, that you're not the only one. The short arms is an issue, and I understand. A lot of people are adverse to seeing a defensive player picked with that first pick that the Bears have, because as we talked about early in the show, we want to provide Justin Fields with as many weapons and protection as possible. So, I wish we had more time where we could talk about some of the players that were bypassed in these mock drafts, because that's always an interesting facet of all of this. Jordan, do you recall, was there an offensive lineman or a wide receiver that you said, man, maybe I should take this guy instead of Roger?
Sure. So Tyler Smith was gone at that point. And admittedly, I think that Tyler Smith is going to be a round one player, unfortunately, for anybody holding out hope. There's just too much smoke and fire there with Lance Zierlein, Daniel Jeremiah, Dane Brugler, you name it. I think a team like the Dallas Cowboys kind of swoops a guy like that up. But in regards to the question of who was there that I skipped out on, you're talking about players like George Pickens was there available to take. And I thought, well, Alex Pierce is – I view Alex Pierce as a better player, but even if you viewed Pickens better, I think it's a tiny bit worse for Pierce, and so I'll take him around later. As far as offensive linemen, Jamari Salyer, Sean Ryan, Dylan Parham, you name it, all those guys were there. As far as tackles, Ryman was not there. Falele was. So there were options there, and ultimately, and I won't go on a huge diatribe here, but in regards to Don's concern about taking a corner that high, we can get into measurables later, but the reality is corner is a value position. It is a position that they get paid in free agency. And, the reality is you find a corner that works for you. Look at Jalen Johnson, the second-round pick, and I don't think anybody's complaining about where we took him. So corner is a value position, and if you think you have the right guy, I'm taking that guy over an interior offensive lineman or a receiver when, you can find a Tyreek Hill in the fifth. You can find other guys in the third, fourth, a Darnell Mooney in the fifth. So, I skipped over quite a few and decided to take Roger McCreary there. I believe in him that much.
Well, you're right there. It depends on who's on the board.
Yeah.
Available.
Yeah, I was going to add real quickly. Yeah, I was just going to say, Aldo, and I think something we're forgetting at the end of the day, like we can kind of go a little bit too deep into measurables. There's a lot of guys who can talk about the Darius Hayward Bays, that the John Rosses, the guys that have those great measurables, but they never, live up to the hype. Roger McCreary is a guy that's been playing in the SEC and playing very well against the top receivers in the SEC. Your
Thank you.
Jamar Chases and your Justin Jeffersons. We can nitpick about his arm length and all of that, but at the end of the day, he didn't have a problem in the SEC. He's been very consistent, and at the end of the day, that's what you want in your corner. Somebody that's technically sound. He's not going to make a lot of mistakes. He's not going to get caught out of position. Even though he has those short arms, he's been very, very consistent.
I think Neil and Danny say it best when they say you watch the tape, you see what you see on film, and then you match up the combine, the underwear Olympics numbers to what you're seeing on film.
Right.
And if they match up, then that's your guy. If they don't match up, then maybe you got to go back and do some more homework. But the tape never lies. Shout out, Phil.
There you go. I had to draft off the show. And a shout out to Neil and Danny. Draft on Tap Thursdays at 8 p.m. The guys are planning a really good one for tomorrow. All right, Don, let's go over to your draft. And very small type here because you made a couple of moves. But I see with your first pick, you picked a cornerback. That's interesting. Tell me why.
I can't see it. Give me a second. One second.
I can read them out to you.
Okay, I don't know what draft you have up, but it looks to me I have round 239 is Tyler Smith.
Okay, perhaps I put the wrong one up. So
no, I think you got it up there. He's up at the very top for the trade.
My bad.
Don made so many trades that Tyler Smith.
But I did pick a cornerback. I did pick a cornerback, and with a prime draft pick. I took Mark Jones in the third.
Okay, so you picked Tyler Smith with the 39th overall pick in the second round, and then that's when you started to make some some trades to accumulate more draft capital, because as we all know, we'd love to have some more draft assets. And so you've got Marcus Jones picked in the third round. You got Dylan Parham picked with that 71st pick of the third round. You got Cole Strange, another guard, two guards back to back, and you've got the tight end Jelani Woods, and then you've got a center, Cam Jurgens, who a lot of people in the chat room over time really love this guy, and then Tyson Anderson in the also in the fourth round. So which one of these players particularly are you proud of that you found, Don, in this draft?
Well, I'm not proud of it. I was just lucky Tyler Smith fell. He doesn't normally fall.
Yeah.
So normally I trade 39, but he was there, so I didn't trade. I traded 48, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And as you notice, I also included our best pass rusher in that trade. I hate to do it, but as I said, I think the focus is offense. It was my intention to pick up Logan Hall, but it didn't fall that way.
Mm-hmm.
So we will struggle with a pass rush this year if my draft happens to be, the draft they do, which never, of course, happens.
But
I like Marcus Jones as a cornerback. He's probably the best slot corner in football, and he's a great returner. He's 4.38, 40, I think. He's even a little faster than. Sorry, can't think of his name. Our should be Hall of Fame returner,
Devin Hester.
Yeah, Devin Hester. Thank you. He's a little faster than him. Not caught. I don't believe me. I'm not saying he's Devin Hester, but he's impressive. And then, like I said, I fill out the offensive line with quality people and try to find weapons. Jelani Woods, it's kind of like rising fast in the board.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, I used to be able to pick him up way back in like 120, 130. And now I had to spend, an 83rd pick in order to get him. I think he's an offensive weapon. I think he's almost kind of a freak. He runs a 4.61, 6'8", has good hands. He runs well after the catch. So I like him. And then I just love the film from Cam Jurgensen. Tyson Anderson is basically just a prospect, a developmental guy. He's all traits, no production. And then I'm very high. I don't mean to go this far down, but I'll go be quick. I am a huge Taekwon Thornton fan. He is extremely underrated. People are they just think of him as speed, and he's not. The film that I've watched on him, he's a decent route runner. He has outstanding hands with a huge catch radius. He's not a body catcher. He gets the passes he receives are usually way off target, so you get to see how well he catches the ball far away from his body. He's good in contested catches. His one problem, he's not particularly strong, and if you're going to play press against him, he's still developing, getting away from the press. But he's getting better on that even. And then I do draft Ty Chandler. I think we need to pick a running back. He is the change pace back that they say they want. Of course, get him fairly cheaply, and makes it possible for the Bears to not sign David Montgomery. Not that we want, but that's probably what's going to happen. So that's my thinking. I'm sure there's. Go ahead. I'm done.
I don't want to. I'm sorry, y'all. I steal the show every fucking time I'm on here. I apologize. But,
go ahead. No, I please go.
So Cole.
Yeah.
So Cole Strange, they've got him listed as a guard, but he played center at Chattanooga. He played right here. I went and saw him at Kentucky. I have a season ticket holder. I saw him live. He's pretty good.
I didn't know that.
I mean, yeah, he's pretty good. He's got a little bit of nasty to him. That was kind of, I mean, to me, that's kind of early for him, but he has been spoken a lot about in all the draft shows, and all the analysts have spoken a lot about him. Taekwon Thornton, you fill me in on him. All I know about him is his 40 time. I know he had the record for the 40 this year. The corner picked. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. That speed in itself is just so valuable.
Right. It stretches the
field. You put him out there, you have a go route. First time, he beats everybody. They can't touch him. I don't care if he gets the ball or not. It's noticed.
Right.
Okay. All of a sudden, defense has to go too high, and that opens up everything. If they don't go too high, he's going to kill you.
Right.
And now we run the ball better. Everything underneath is easier. And like I said, he's good underneath. He's good at all levels, all three levels. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all good, brother. It's your draft. I mean, I'm just giving notes about it. But the corner you picked, I think, what is he, 5'8", 5'9", something like that? That's the only thing that worries me about it.
Yeah, Marcus.
But I think he's got like 9 special teams touchdowns in college. So,
yep,
I mean,
9. You're right.
He could take it to the house. You know what I'm saying?
and that's why. And I think, like I said, I think he's the best slot corner coming out of college, and that return where we need that 9. That's what made me think of Devin Hester. I don't expect it to be Devin Hester,
right?
But just keep that pace up when you get to the NFL, and I'll be thrilled.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it comes down to coaching and having the right blocking scheme and stuff too. Games a little different now. Punting out of bounds and kicking it out of the back of the end zone all the time. It's tough for those special teams
because of Devin Hester.
Yeah. Don't tell Yurko that though. I don't know if you've heard his takes on Hester. Ooh.
Yeah.
I haven't.
I'm not a big fan. Hey, before we move on,
if they're not positive, I'll argue furiously with him.
Give ESPN 1000 a call and ask to speak with Yurko, and make sure you record it because that's something I want to hear.
Oh, he'll fight with
Okay.
you.
Hey,
ESPN bothering me a lot right now.
I want to welcome in Vinny Parisi, who, if his right side of his face looks a little swollen, it's because he's been battling a tooth abscess that he's going to get worked on tomorrow. But despite all that, this is his third appearance on a Barroom Show today. He started at 2 p.m. with Bar Down Hockey Talk, pre-recorded tomorrow's Crosstown Crosstalk. He probably is hoping that the White Sox are going to pull out this second game of a doubleheader, but they will not. The final out just happened. Sorry, Vinny. And now he's with us, and a little later he will provide his mock draft. So, Vinny, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Well, how's it going, everyone? I'm happy to be here. I don't know what you're talking about with baseball. This is football. I'm not listening to that baseball. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Okay, I'm not paying attention. I don't know any. I'm just kidding. Read all the White Sox work on Southside Showdown tomorrow and listen to Crosstown every week. Yeah. So I hear we're here to talk a little Bears draft. Is that correct?
That is why we are all gathered, indeed. And so what we're going to do next, go over to Tony, the pod boss, and look at his picks. He submitted 2 picks, and he wants to talk about these 2 players in depth. So here are those 2 players. The offensive lineman from Kentucky. Get a hold of yourself, Aaron. I know you're excited by this. Darian Kennard and Jalen Tolbert. These 2 players I love very much. The wide receiver out of South Alabama, a late rising star on many draft boards. Tony, take it away and tell us why you selected these 2 guys to talk about.
Yeah, most certainly. I didn't do any trades or anything like that. I just, use the board how it positioned itself. I think Darian Kennard, honestly, is probably top 3 offensive lineman in the draft, and it's crazy that a lot of people have, pushed him off to the wayside. He's been the most, consistent offensive lineman since 2004. I think he's the highest graded, and we're talking about grades higher than guys like the, Lyle Collins, of the world. When we talk about offensive linemen, we talk about beef. When we talk about strength and things like that, SEC is pretty much, cream of the crop. When you look at those 5-star players and things like that. And Darian Kennard has never had a problem with any of your top, defensive linemen that you can think of. He's been the highest graded offensive lineman, as I stated, for the last 3 years, the highest since 2014 on average. This is a guy that's 6'5". I believe he's 245. He moves very well in space. He plays tackle, but a lot of people have him, positioned at guard. So this is a guy that can pretty much play, all through the line. Ryan Poles, they've made it no secret that they're gonna, just allow us to play out, see, what 5 best guys are, positioned to, play, and just play it that way. I think Kennard can play tackle. He can play guard. He can play anywhere on that line. If you want to do an outside run scheme, this is the type of guy you want. He's a mauler. He's very strong. So Darian Kennard was my very first pick, in the second round, 39th pick. And then you have Jalen Tolbert. Something that was interesting, when I looked at the press conference yesterday, Justin Fields, he was kind of talking about, Chris Olave, and I felt bad for him. He was talking about how, Chris Olave is one of the best deep ball trackers that he's ever played with. I think, Jalen Tolbert is, just as good when it comes to the deep ball. He had 16 deep balls that ranked 7th in the nation. So this is a guy that's very comfortable. I believe he's close to 6'2". So this is still a big receiver. This guy can, get the deep balls. He's a good route runner. These are the type of guys you want to, surround Justin Fields around. We talk about, playing to Justin Fields' strengths, what he does well. Justin Fields, when he was at Ohio State, had Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, and Chris Olave, all very fast guys that were capable of stretching the field and getting that deep ball. And I think Jalen Tolbert is just as good. So these were my 2 picks in the first, second and third round. Technically second round. I think these guys are, these are guys that we can build on. Continue to put, playmakers around Justin Fields. Those are my 2 guys. I think, they're going to be steals because a lot of people are forgetting about it.
All right. Comments on those 2 players. Jordan, I'll start with you.
Sure. I mean, Tony, I tend to agree. I think that they're solid picks. I'll start with Tolbert. Tolbert to me is fine. I think he was ultra productive at South Alabama. Solid X option. I don't think he presents any particular wow factors or traits in his game. Again, that's not so much of a slight on him. I just think that when you're talking about potential options, even in that range, I would prefer Khalil Shakir, for example, as another option there. Somebody who's really incredible at coming down with the ball and attacking at the catch point. The reason I bring that up consistently, and something that I brought up with Alec Pierce, is something I noticed continuously last year when Justin Fields was throwing these deep balls. I mean, some of the ones that come to mind immediately is like that end of the game interception to Darnell Mooney versus the 49ers. Is he's throwing these deep balls and there's not a dominant receiver attacking at the catch point and coming down with it. We're in desperate need of a guy that can really challenge and turn those 50-50 balls into 80-20, 90-10. So I want a guy that really is aggressive there. And like I said, it's not that I don't think Tolbert has that in his game. I just don't think that there's any particular area. And Tony, I'd welcome it if you think that Tolbert does one specific thing fantastic. And so really I find that he's a well-rounded prospect, but not a wow player. And then with Kennard, the last thing I'll bring up there is just I think he's a solid player. I don't like his technique particularly in pass sets and run. I know that we're somewhat projecting him to move inside to guard, played tackle at Kentucky. I think he's a decent people mover, decent run blocker, but ultimately I think that he struggles to anchor. And so it's a real question with pass sets. How's he going to handle, this consistent 3-4 league that we're facing in 2 highs where you're seeing these big monster nose guards that are really pressing on your center and your guard. And so, he had some tough pass set reps at the Senior Bowl. And it's not, again, nothing that I hate Kennard for, but if you're telling me that Sawyer was there or even Ryan, I'm taking both of those guys ahead of him.
Yeah, but the only reason why I would take him over like maybe a Sawyer, I thought, Kate was a good pick. It's partly because of the outside zone scheme. This is something he's very comfortable in. He's a great zone blocker at the end of the day. We're talking
Liam Cohen was our offensive coordinator last year, so
he's
over.
Like, right, so you got a guy that's one of the best run blockers of all time in SEC history. Like, this is not just your ordinary guy. A lot of people fell in love with guys like Trevor Penning and who are some of the other quote unquote maulers that are in the draft. Like, he's the tone setter. He's the guy that everybody pretty much forgot when it comes to it. And partly because he's positionless. Like, they don't see him as, an NFL offensive tackle. You put him at guard and he does essentially what he does well. When you talk about his pass sets, he's not in space anymore. So he's not worrying about, a speedy, DN like a Robert Quinn or something like that trying to, turn a corner on him. He has a little bit more he has less room, to do what he does best. And Jalen Tolbert, I just think, at the end of the day, we need to get guys that are good, very good at tracking the deep ball, because that's one of Justin Fields' strongest suits. And this guy was 7 in the nation when you talk about deep balls and deep yards. So that's a skill set that he definitely has. And then size. At the end of the day, we need size. We need that jump ball guy, that dependable guy that can get that, that 50-50 ball. So I think he has that, to his game as well. But the biggest thing right now is, deep balls. We need guys that can get those deep balls for Justin Fields.
Outstanding work, guys. I love the conversation. I can see, the scouts of the Chicago Bears sitting around a round table, having talks like this, maybe throwing paperweights at each other, and pounding the table as Danny should like to say.
All the time.
Exactly.
Well, I wouldn't be there because, I'm just a fan. I'm not a talent evaluator. But
So you're the owner, huh?
Yeah. So yeah.
even if you're a Bear fan, you're a talent evaluator.
Somebody's
love
got to
it.
do it.
Guys, I'm going to go slightly out of order here because Vinny Parisi has a deadline for some of the White Sox articles that he is writing, and he's also writing a mock draft article. And so we're going to get a preview of it right here and now. Vinny, why don't you take it away, brother?
Yeah, thank you so much. So this is a mock article going on Fansided tomorrow. I'm pretty excited to release it. Everybody's going to be all up in arms telling me why I'm an idiot, and then there are going to be plenty of people who are like, yeah, man, I really like that guy. So, but I was listening to some of your guys' analysis earlier in the show, and man, you guys know your stuff. This has been a great show. So everybody on here should be very proud of that. And of course, Aldo, thank you for having me as always. With pick 39 of the second round, of course, because that's the Bears' first draft pick in the draft. Now, I'm not great with pronouncing some of these names, but maybe one of you can correct me if I say it wrong. Daniel Falele, offensive tackle from Minnesota, is somebody that I was looking at as somebody who could be brought in the early portion of the second round to come in and be a protector of Justin Fields as they try to figure out if Devin Jenkins or any of these other guys are really going to pan out long term. I think the more the merrier when it comes to that. And then with the 48th overall pick given to the Bears by the Chargers in the Khalil Mack deal, I have Jahan Dotson, wide receiver from Penn State. I'm of the opinion that as many great wide receivers as the Bears can get in this draft is something that they should really consider because, as we know, Justin Fields' development is pivotal to moving this team forward. In round number 3, pick 71, I picked Myjai Sanders. He's an edge rusher from Cincinnati. Guy takes a lot of penalties, okay? He's offsides all the time. That's something that's got to get cleaned up if he ever wants to really be an impact player at the NFL level. He's also kind of on the smaller side, according to what some of the scouts believe should be an edge rusher in the NFL. But he's fast, he's nimble, when he's not offsides, he's making plays, and he's played some big games as an underdog in his college career. So I kind of like that scrappiness attitude to him. With pick number 148 of the 5th round, that's the Texans pick. I believe it has to do with the Anthony Miller trade. Justin Ross, wide receiver, Clemson. This is a guy who was considered to be a potential second round talent after, I want to say it was the 2019 season, but then they realized he had like a spinal issue, and it became known that he had to have some kind of surgery. Otherwise, he was never going to play football again. And, that allowed him to come in. And if he falls to the Bears at that pick, he's somebody that I would consider. And then 2 picks later, I think it's Bears, Carolina Panthers, Bears again, 150, Neil Farrell, defensive tackle from LSU. When you get to the 5th, 6th round, sometimes you guys don't know if other people would have been reached for at this point or something, and they might already be gone. But if he's there, I enjoyed watching some of his film from LSU. It looked like a guy who could come in and nobody is going to replace Akeem Hicks or Eddie Goldman or anyone like that, like right off the bat. But, over time, as many guys as you can bring in to try and help move that part of the team forward, I'm all for it, especially in the 5th round. And then to cap off the last pick that they have, pick 186, 6th round, Josh Jobe, Alabama cornerback, someone to consider. The Bears secondary has definitely taken a hit over the last 2 or 3 seasons. And, kind of like I've said over and over again, the more the merrier when it comes to bringing in bodies. So that's what I got. Go ahead. Feel free to critique me and tell me what you agree and disagree with here.
Well, I was just going to say, does anybody have anything nice to say about Falele? I mean,
yeah, he's powerful.
He's huge. And when the Bears management says they put on your track shoes, I'm not sure he can fit into any track shoes.
That's the thing. I don't think he fits their plan.
Awesome. That's not a popular pick amongst the masses.
Well, it may not be a scheme fit. Is that right, guys?
That's my thought.
Yeah.
And also I see him more as a right tackle. We already have 2 of those, so I want to throw another one in there.
Sure.
And
Do
try
you
to
guys
figure
see
it
him
out.
going for sure in that 2nd round within the top 15 picks of the 2nd round area, though?
I think he'd be
late
lower
second,
in the
early
second.
third.
Yeah.
Late 2nd? Okay.
late second, early third. I'll be very brief with that. I mean, with Falele, I think the situation there is I see the tantalizing traits of saying, earlier I had mentioned Logan Hall as an archetype that you don't often see, that Buckner Armstead archetype. Well, Falele really is even more of a rare characteristic guy, where the only guy that I really see that compares to him is a Trent Brown. And that's special when you have that type of size. The issue is, and this is where a lot of fans get lost, is Trent Brown feels real nice when you get him in the 5th round. But when you're drafting Falele in the 2nd or 3rd, you want that level of production. And even Trent Brown has had a middling career, some ups and some downs. And Falele, I mean, people talk about Tyler Smith and how enticing he is. The big knock on Tyler Smith is that he has no technique. He plays pass sets with his hands at his hips like he's quick draw McGraw. The situation with Falele is, I as big as he is, I don't see the crazy athlete that is able to really kick step and beat those wide edges. A guy you took later in the draft, Myjai Sanders, don't get me wrong, he's a very small edge. If Falele gets his hands on Sanders, it's game over. The issue is I think that those speedy guys get around the corner of Falele like no other. And then that's the real issue, is if he can't get out to the edge and really protect, how good is he covering my quarterback's blind side if he's a left-hander? And, of course, he's in the field side for Justin Fields.
Sure. Very interesting.
He's a super intriguing, football player, and he's going to find a home, and he could be one of these guys that's going to play for many, many years in the NFL. Although guys that big, there's a lot of wear and tear on those knees and ankles and feet, so I worry about that. And the tendency with most football teams now is to have these speedy offensive linemen, and he doesn't quite fit that mold, although he can't move it for a guy that size. But I don't think he's quite what the Chicago Bears are looking for. Although who knows? This is a crazy business when it comes to draft. You might see Falele in a Bears uniform. Wouldn't that shock us all? Except for Vinny.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I appreciate this analysis, though. Some of these critiques, I completely understand, and when you compare them to other players that you compared them to, I completely get it and I respect it. So you know what? If that's something that ends up being like where if he goes to another team and like he's awesome, then I'll be like, oh man, I saw that coming, didn't I, guys? And then unlikely. But one guy I wanted to get like a kind of roundtable on before I make my departure here. I love the story of Justin Ross, the Clemson wide receiver. We talked about it earlier on our hockey show, and as we were kind of wrapping up the show talking about non-hockey related things, man, the surgery and his parents learning about how he had to like deal with this. And then he came back, and it's like, okay, if this guy lives up to what we thought he would be after his freshman year at Clemson, the Bears just got like a top flight wide receiver prospect in the 4th, 5th. They don't have a 4th round pick. If he falls to them in the 5th round, my worry as I put up my mock draft was like, does he make it to the 5th round? Are there other teams thinking the same way as I am, and they maybe overdraft him with the injury risk in the 3rd or 4th round? That's something that's concerning to me. But I'm curious.
Is he the guy who had the spinal fusion?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't pick him ever.
Yeah. Here's my thing.
I'm sorry. I before I retired, I was a surgical nurse for several years, and I also have had 3 back surgeries myself. And I know from experience that once you've had a spinal fusion, you're only a few years away from having another. And now that's just daily life. You put that on a football player, I can almost assure you, within 2 years, he'll have to have another one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, he loses all his flexibility because those 2 vertebrae are fused together. So he has lost flexibility in his back. And now the other vertebrae above and below take all the extra pressure. And that's why it's a problem.
What round did you take him in, Vinny?
It was the 5th round with Houston's pick at 148.
I'm totally good with that.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Go ahead.
I've been grabbing him consistently in the 6th round. And the reason why is because just like you said, in 2019, this guy went off. Now, there's a corner that's going to go in the top 12 picks of the draft that's living off 2019 hype. So that's what kind of throws me off about this. But after what Don just said, I mean, he's obviously got – I mean, if he was a nurse for a surgeon. He's got a little more knowledge of that than I do. So it might be something to watch out for. But I figure if you take him that late, like in the 6th, if he falls there, you're usually betting on traits in that round anyway. And if you're betting on this guy's traits from 2019, where he was, you said first, second round, like I saw top 10 pick is what they were talking after.
And he was okay this year coming back from the surgery, but like Don so accurately pointed out, of course that could happen again. And if he needs the surgery, then it's like you understand why he's fallen in so many mock drafts and so many draft boards. So definitely an interesting story. I'm rooting for him now, though. I will say that.
You had Jahan Dotson as the second pick in the second round. I've been seeing him in first round mock drafts. So maybe you could actually, the more accurate would probably be our 2 picks swapped, as you get Dotson at 39. Hope to God he lands to you at 39, and then take maybe Filele at 48 if you like him. I'm not a huge Filele fan, but I'm not a Big Ten guy either. You give me an SEC guy, Darian Kennard. I mean, I'm biased. I'm glad I came on here tonight to listen to everyone talk about Darian, because I love Darian. I've met him in person. I love the guy. He's nasty on the field, and he's a gentleman off the field. And I can't glow more about this guy. So I wanted to say that about Tony's before we moved on, because I wanted to listen to everyone else talk about my guy before you heard the biased opinion of a Kentucky fan.
Well, I like your guy too.
Thanks, Don.
I gotta tell you, real quickly, this is him, and just the fact that he's got a gut just like mine, I like him.
Me too.
And this dude's a leader. This guy's a leader. This guy ran out with the American flag every Saturday for the Kentucky Wildcats. He's a 3-time All-American. He's a body mover, and like just like Tony said, he struggles with speed on the edge sometimes, but you put him inside the guard, and I guarantee you he will bury defensive tackles.
He's a mean.
And he can also always give you that tackle position in a punt, grunt.
Right.
Right.
And I'd buy his jersey the day we draft him, so there's that too. You can sell jerseys.
I'm one of those people who actually has a great deal of confidence in Devin Jenkins left tackle. Very little film, but what I see from what he played last year, a little bit. I studied the Viking game, and he has tremendous punch, and he has no problem mirroring. And I'm confident in him being left tackle.
And he's got his quarterbacks back. He was the only one that went out there and got his dude and was ready to fight dudes. I love Tevin.
I love that. I love his attitude.
And then I think he has. Trying to imagine, like I wouldn't mind seeing Devin Jenkins play right tackle, because a lot of it's going to be off those boots that you're going to see Fields doing, booting to the left. So trying to imagine, Devin Jenkins playing right tackle, Darian Kennard playing right guard, and then you have Lucas Patrick. Like that. That's just running for days at the end of the day. I would love to see that for the Bears.
Yeah.
Well, that would be certainly a side to run to.
One quick point before I let Vinny go regarding Justin Ross. One of the things that I've learned from Greg Gabriel, who's mentioned it to me at least 3 times, Greg is very, very confident with the Bears medical team. In fact, they've worked on Greg a number of times for some of his surgeries, including back surgery. So if he were drafted by the Chicago Bears, it would come with Greg's seal of approval that the medical staff has checked out Ross and that he's ready to play football, and hopefully for a long time with Chicago. Vinny, I'm going to let you go. Write those stories and get a lot of clicks. Vinny Parisi, let people know who might be listening without the visual aid where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so you could follow me at Vinny Parisi on Twitter. Got all my work coming out. The mock draft that I just read to you, you guys got a nice little preview of it, is coming out on thewindycity.com tomorrow. And then all my analysis on what happened in that debacle of a day that the Chicago White Sox had is out on southsideshowdown.com. And I also cover the Cubs, Blackhawks, and Bulls at the Windy City as well. And of course, we have the shows at the Barroom Network. So it's going to be interesting. And Aaron, you'll appreciate this. I have the top 3 SEC players that the Bears should target in the second round coming out over the weekend. So it's going to be some fun covering all the conferences. That's my thing too. I go to the SEC title game every year. So that's my conference too.
Hell yeah.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much for popping in. Talk to you later, brother.
All right.
All right. Before we get to Aaron Currents, because everybody's going to really delve into one of the moves he's made. I got a preview of his draft. I want to get Skox in and detail to us, Skox, who you picked and why, and then we'll comment on it.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, so number 39, just like Don, Tyler Smith falls to me. And I believe it was Ryman who was also available at the time. But with what we've seen, what we've heard, just the traits, 6'5", tough, anchor's good, lateral quickness, good, but I don't love him at left tackle. I know that's where he played most on tape, Tulsa. And I know Cody Whitehair is on contract for, let's see, I think a few more years, two more years. So I would love Tyler Smith, plug him in at left guard and possibly rotate with the coaching staff, right guard, left guard, with Whitehair and Tyler Smith. So I think that's an option there at 39. 48, George Pickens, 6'3", 200 pounds. I mean, what else can you say? Playmaker, tough. He's an absolute bully. Like, this guy is, I mean, everyone's seen it. He just pushes guys off the line. Great speed, yards after the catch. After the injury, I know he's dropping a bit, but I do think he's going to be late first round pick. So it would surprise me if he was there at 48. So we'll see about that with Pickens. 71, Martin Emerson, Mississippi State. Great size, great build. 6'2", 200 pounds. I like him playing press coverage in man. Pretty decent in zone. One interception, I believe, last year, or it might even been a total with his career at Mississippi State. But I know Neil and Danny, they really harped on him. I think it was a few weeks ago. But I love his tape. Good reaction, quickness in coverage. So filling in that cornerback 2 spot, because I'm just drafting for need here. I mean, I'm usually just drafting for need at this point at 71 with Martin Emerson. And 148, Matt Walletsko from North Dakota. 6'7". I love him at left tackle. And with a left tackle, the situation right now, it's whether we have Borum at left or we try Jenkins. To be honest, I think they're equal with Walletsko starting at left. I just don't see that dominant advantage with any of them sticking out at left tackle. So I love Borum at right, and I love Jenkins in right. And Walletsko, he could compete for that left tackle spot. Whether we sign someone later days here, Eric Fisher possibly, left tackle to fill in, and have some guys develop over the years. And at 150, wide receiver Danny Gray from SMU, 6 feet tall, good build, broad shoulders, crazy explosive playmaker. I mean, this guy has a nose for the end zone, speedy, yards after the catch. He is relentless. Really breaks tackles, great ball skills in the air for his size at 6 feet tall. I think that's great value at 150 because I've seen him pushing up a bit on boards around 130-ish. So I think that's great value at 150. And last pick, 186, Varon Mckinley, safety from Oregon. I love this pick here. Whether he's developing for a strong safety role or a free safety role down the line, I think there's great potential with him. If he slides in at nickel safety for those packages, I think that's a good pick there. Good athlete, quickness in coverage. He's not very impressive in man, but that's coaching and experience. Obviously, going to learn more. Going to improve. He's versatile tackler in zone, man. And really, the only knock I have on him is his balance. He seems to get a bit tripped up making tackles, but he's still a good tackler. Just needs to work on some stuff, but I love that pick at 186. Yep.
Good stuff there, Scox. And talk about a draft that addresses needs. I think you definitely did that. Anybody want to comment on any particular players or the overall draft?
I guess I'll start. I know Aaron seems like he's ready to go too. I'll be quick.
I'm
Aaron.
trying not to steal everybody's time. I feel like I've talked the whole fucking show. I'm sure you guys just want me to shut up.
Oh, we can swear?
It's a bar room, bro.
Oh, man, cool.
Folks, I love the draft. I mean, there's obviously we're going to differ in different areas. I mean, really the only two players I didn't love, and it's just a preference thing, is Danny Gray and Matt Walletsko. But I mean, as far as Martin Emerson, the comp I have for him, it's funny enough, and I could see it making sense, is I see him as a Xavier Rhodes. Real long, lean corner that plays well in press man and stays in phase on the boundary. Not a guy you can move inside, but that's okay. You play him opposite of Jalen Johnson. And the funny thing is I think he and Jalen are kind of the same player, and that's not a bad thing. While I have some issues with that, and this is kind of the Danny Gray, I'll loop into that right now. Danny Gray to me is kind of a Darnell Mooney part 2, and I guess I don't hate it at where you're taking him at that late in the draft, but in a wide receiver room, I tend to want a more varied archetype. Let's get a ball winner. Let's get a perimeter X. Let's get a shifty slot. Let's get a burner. At corner, I don't think that that's necessarily what you need. You can have two guys that really play man, and man is incredibly important. So I like Emerson there. The Pickens pick, I mean, I don't have an issue with that. Pickens is an alpha X. And then really probably my favorite pick in the draft there is Varon Mckinley at the end. I really want to highlight him. Now, who knows if he'll really make it there? I think any smart football executive would really take him. Freudian slip there. Would take him because you look at Varon Mckinley, and I mean, something that I think that really translates from college to the league is when you have guys that have a ball magnet, when they just find their nose to the football. And that is what Varon Mckinley did at Oregon. And I tend to think that you're going to find a guy like him to come in, and he's that guy that just finds his nose to the football. I don't see him as a strong, so I think he would be in that developmental role. See, the difference is I took JT Woods. JT Woods to me is my replacement Eddie Jackson. I'm not a huge Eddie Jackson fan. I think that you let him walk after next year. JT Woods you develop this year. He becomes that rangy free safety. I don't mind the Varon Mckinley pick because I think McKinley comes in. He's got enough range. He's not quite as rangy as Eddie or JT Woods would be, but he's got that knack for the football like Eddie, and I think that that's priceless if you really hit on that guy. And so McKinley is, chef's kiss at the end of that draft. Excellent work.
Yep.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I agree. Tyler Smith, the big knock on him is penalties and hand usage. I feel like a lot of that could be coached. If you've got a good offensive line coach that knows what the hell they're doing, they can work with that dude and get him to stop grabbing so much. You use your athleticism and your strength. I mean, you're not a small person. Move people around. George Pickens, I love the guy. SEC national champion. If he hadn't tore his ACL, he'd probably be a top 15 pick in my opinion. He played against SEC DBs week in and week out. Now he is in the East. We have teams like Vanderbilt over here in Missouri, so it's not quite Alabama's schedule. But what can you say? He's a damn good receiver. And after that, I kind of blacked out on your draft because I loved both the first two picks. I mean, I was like, we got two starters right there. I know you said you grabbed need, but it doesn't look like you reached anywhere. And that's a big thing. Just because you draft for need, you can still grab best player available and marry that with your needs. You know what I'm saying? We need a corner because all we have right now is Jalen Johnson and maybe Graham. We'll see what he's got. So you grab that there. The offensive tackle, I'll be honest, I have no idea who this guy is. And I pride myself on knowing players and positions and stuff. I've never seen this name in my entire life. Maybe you said he could play some left tackle. Maybe he kicks in at guard. I mean,
he's an athletic, toolsy pass protector out of North Dakota. And I mean, really, that's what I was kind of telling Skokes is I don't have any real issue with Walletsko other than I just kind of have my own bias towards those North Dakota State guys. I mean, Dylan Radins, for example, went in the second last year out of there, and he's kind of a guard and failing to find the field in Tennessee. And so, I mean, like Skokes, if you want to highlight kind of some of the other guys there, I mean, the ones that immediately stick out to me is I'd be looking at Max Mitchell there if he was available. I love Max Mitchell's game, and especially at 148. I mean, that would have been really my pie in the sky pick at tackle there if you want a developmental tackle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at your draft, man. I love it at the end of the day. Tyler Smith is who you want. It's kind of similar to that Darian Kennard type of pick. Like you want those maulers, those guys that are gonna set the tone. I think it was Brandon Staley. He kind of talked about it. The run game is very important because it sets the tone of how this game is gonna go. You start to wear a team down, and then it really helps you in the fourth quarter with guys like Tyler Smith. Yeah, he has some things, that he needs to clean up. But at the end of the day, you want real football players. You want guys that are going to help you, control the, time of possession in the game. You want guys that are going to wear, that defense, that the defensive line down. You want guys that are, going to pretty much, force defenses to, play honest, not cheat, not bring, safeties up and things like that. So I don't have a problem with Tyler Smith. One pick that I really, really loved, on your draft there was, Danny Gray. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's probably a steal if we can get him at, 150. This is a guy that, he's, in my opinion, he's just as good as a lot of those, second and third rounders, that are up there. This is a guy who, he's at a smaller school, but he had the big offers, after, he came from JUCO. He could have went to a lot of those big name, Big 12 SEC schools, but he decided to go to SMU, and he really shined. He's another deep threat guy. He can work the inside as well, so he would definitely be a steal if we were lucky enough to get him at 150.
Yeah. Just really quick, covering Danny Gray there, 6 feet tall, but man, he's explosive. I mean, this guy gets in the end zone, man. Really gets up there for these catches with his size. So,
yeah, I kind of agree with Jordan on Danny Gray. He reminds me a lot of Darnell Mooney. If he is able to surpass Darnell, maybe you don't have to pay Darnell like Tyreek Hill just got paid. I love Darnell. I have his jersey. Don't get me wrong, but you've got to be looking for the future. You got to build for sustained success, not just success this year.
Yep.
All right, we're going to move on here in the interest of time because I got a show at 9:00 that I got to get to. So, Aaron, yesterday at the press conference, Justin Fields was asked about Olave, the wide receiver over at Ohio State. Spoke glowingly of him, and on the Dan and Aldo Bear Their show, we talked about, man, wouldn't it be nice if we could figure out a way to get this guy without spending a lot of draft capital. I don't know if you heard the show, but I noticed something interesting about it. I noticed something interesting about your draft. Take it away, brother.
Oh boy.
Well, I decided to package both of our second round picks and move up with the New England Patriots. I got a fourth in return. And I went up and I got our guy, Chris Olave. And the reason why I grabbed 21 in particular is because it's one pick before the Packers, because I do not want to see Chris Olave 2 times a year playing against our guy, Justin Fields. So
that's a good reason.
It's 420. I said, fuck it, let's do something crazy. And I moved up and I went and got our guy, Chris Olave. And it was a difficult decision, honestly, because when I moved up, Chris Olave was there in this particular mock. I think Jamison Williams was there and Trevor Penning. So I kind of contemplated who I wanted to go with. But an hour north of me in Cincinnati, there's a guy named Joe Burrow who they got his college wide receiver, and they went to the damn Super Bowl. So go get our college wide receiver and marry him in. And then as I was waiting on the draft, Aldo, I don't know if you run the Draft Network's draft simulator. Sometimes trades will just pop up on your screen and they'll offer it to you. So
right,
it popped up on my screen, this other trade where they wanted a 5th round pick and my 3rd round pick to get back into the 2nd round with the Atlanta Falcons there. And I was like, I got 2 5th round picks. Screw it, let's try it. So I moved up and Sean Ryan was sitting there. He's an offensive guard from UCLA, and I like him quite a bit. I feel like he's a plug and play right guard. And then from there, Volson, I don't know who he was. He's from North Dakota State. I like North Dakota State. I know, Jordan, you just spoke about it, but when I brought up his thing on the Draft Network, they didn't have any analytics or anything about the guy. So I just grabbed a tackle that was rated high on the board. At 150, I grabbed Kobe Bryant. He's a guy I really like. He's already a CB2 across from Sauce Gardner there in Cincinnati, so he can plug right in. He already knows the role. He's a big guy. He's a good tackler, pretty good in coverage. And then at the end there, I grabbed myself an edge rusher as kind of a depth piece. And that's my whole draft. I mean, I just felt, why wait for hopefully a Christian Watson to fall to you or hopefully someone else to fall to you when you've got ammunition? I said, screw it. Let's go get our dude. Let's go get Olave, and we'll all be singing Olave on draft night.
Well, anybody takes conviction. Do what you did.
Listen, does anybody think a 2 second round picks can get you the 21st pick of the 1st round? I mean, the Draft Network obviously thinks so. I'm kind of skeptical that the Patriots would go for just that. What do you guys think?
Honestly, I wouldn't mind giving 3 away. Give away next year's. We talk about it all the time. I mean, you just mentioned it. Jamar Chase is with his college quarterback. That's a big thing. You heard Justin. That's the reason why I picked Jalen Tolbert, because I felt sorry hearing Justin Fields talk about Chris Olave like that. Like he was glowing when he got asked that question. Like you can tell he really, really wants to play with this guy. And then to your point, Darnell Mooney, eventually he's going to ask for a larger contract. We get a guy right now that already has that, continuity with Justin Fields. That'd be a steal. I wouldn't mind giving away next year's 2nd round, with this year's 2 second round picks to get Chris Olave.
Aldo, sorry, real quick. I listened to yours and the Dan show, I think from last night, and I thought you guys brought a pretty good, interesting point to give to the 2-round picks and Robert Quinn, because that would unload his heavy contract. I know he's getting up there in age, and we would lose a pass rusher, but you're hoping that what's his name, Deshaun Gibson, is it, that he would work out? So, but I thought that, like, I think if we really wanted it, I think you could make it happen. The question is how much we want to pay for him. But I agree with I'm sorry, whoever said it, dude. I do not want to see this guy end up with the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. That would be a disaster.
Exactly.
Really.
That's why I took the pick 21 instead of letting the Packers grab him.
We should release
well,
that
that's what I
video
like
of him,
about
like,
it.
smoking
Taking
weed
him to
on
keep
draft
away
night
from
or
the
something.
pack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Packers, how could it happen that the Packers have 2 first-round draft picks and 2 second-round draft picks? It is.
Man.
I know they lost Devontae Adams, and I know that they've had some other losses, but it still hurts that they might be able to replace Devontae Adams with a Chris Olave, with a Christian Watson, with any one of the other top receivers who are going to fall to that late first round. It's and I'm looking at Jordan right now because Jordan told me a great story before the show started. He's out west, and Jordan, why don't you tell the story of how you became a Bears fan?
Sure. It's 29 years, about to be 30 of being a Bears fan. So I was a young kid. Bears versus Packers was on TV. I was around 6-7 years old, and I told my dad, who's not a huge football fan, but I said, whoever wins this game, I'm going to be a fan of for the rest of my life. And the Bears won against the Packers. They beat them by a point. I think it was the only time the Bears beat the Packers in, 7-8 years of those series. And I was this close to going the other way and being happy with 40 years of Hall of Fame quarterback play. And instead, I'm a Bears fan here chopping it up with you, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
There you go. That is something.
You'd have to wear that ugly ass trash can green and yellow. I mean,
Right.
Come on, bro. Look at these colors.
Waste
That's your
management.
waste management.
Good stuff. All right, Sonny, I'm going to put you in the hot seat here. And you heard all these mock drafts. And is there one particular draft that really appealed to you?
Let me unmute myself. Man, I hope I don't offend nobody, really. But I did like Aaron's. Man, I think he saw me with Chris Olave. Although, what's his name? I'm sorry if you get back the screen so I can get everyone's names. My bad. I also liked the Don's draft. I thought he accumulated a lot of picks and ended up with going into the draft with not a lot of picks, but ended up coming out with a bunch of players that like you can work with. It seemed that you could work with. I like that, but man, to Aaron's point, man, having Chris Olave, I know sometimes it doesn't work out when you're trying to be a copycat in this league, with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. But damn, we've seen Justin Fields and Chris Olave what they can do. You know what I mean? That's something that I feel we should try to pair up if we can. So I really did like that. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how it would end up. In 2022, I guess, or whatever this coming up year. Because I still do think that we need offensive line, but I like it. I do like it.
I like what Adepta says here. Some teams may value the Bears 2023 as a projected top 5 pick. Trading it straight up for a first might be possible. Yeah, I wouldn't mind dangling that first round pick for next year if it's protected. That might be an interesting way to still keep some of the draft assets you have for this year and pick up a Chris Olave or maybe one of the other top wide receivers who aren't going to make it out of the first round. Let's go around here with some final thoughts on drafts. Anything you want to talk about? And I know Sonny had a question regarding Justin Fields. You want to pose that question now, Sonny?
Yeah. By the way, before I ask the question about Justin Fields, is Don the Lions fan? Is he still in the chat?
Don Burr, I've not seen him. I think he's out stealing cards or something.
I have to tell you guys the story. I want to bet at my work against the Lions fans. So anytime we're having a football conversation and they have to talk about Justin Fields, they have to refer to him as King Fields. So I'm fucking loving it, man. I really am. So, anyways, my question for you guys was, in your opinion, what would a successful season for Fields, what would you feel like if at the end of 2023 or whatever, I don't know what our win-loss would be regardless, what would you consider a successful season for Fields? Me personally, Aldo, do you mind if I start or do you want me to later on?
No, go right for it. Go for it, brother.
For me personally, I'm not sure that I would put any type of, I would want him to have this many touchdowns, this many passing yards. What I would want to see more is, I want to see less fumbles, man. He had way too many fucking fumbles, bro. So that's something that he really, now, big boy time now, man. We got to clean that up. That's something that I would like to see. And then, there are times that, like, when it's third down, man, we need him to convert. We need him to show us why he's special. And I'm sure I think to Tony's point earlier in the pod, he was talking about that we're probably going to lean a lot on run. And there's going to be opportunities for deep shots with play action. That's a strength. I think that he should, if he can make those, that would definitely help us out. But again, sorry, I'm having a feedback here. But in your opinion, what would the successful season would Fields look like?
Let's go around the horn as on the screen. Start with you, AC.
Well, I think you hit the nail right on the head when you said fumbles, cleaning up the fumbles. That's the number one thing to me. I saw flashes. We need to see more consistency out of Justin. The Pittsburgh game where he was making those throws, dropping it in the basket. When he hit Mooney, and I thought he won the game. Yeah, that was one of my happiest moments of last year's terrible season, because I was like, yes, Justin did it. He showed what he can do, and it's beautiful. So we need to see that more often. And less fumbles. And the T in Eberflus's hits formula is take the ball away. So the way I see it, they're going to be swiping at this ball all practice, every practice, trying to knock the ball out. That's only going to make Fields better in the game because he's used to protecting the football now. So I feel like he can actually do that, and they've already started working on his release and stuff. So to me, a successful season, I can't really put a number on it. Like he has to throw this many yards, this many touchdowns. I just less fumbles and more consistency on the field.
Jordan, your thoughts?
Absolutely. I hear a lot of talks about ball security. I think that's important, improving stats. I think stats are a part of it. I think that's more the end result. The means, not necessarily the process. I think that I get a little bit deep in the weeds with metrics, but I think the metric that matters most to me is EPA, that's expected points added. And the way I look at that is what I'm hoping to see is when Justin Fields is under center this year, you're seeing an offense that's efficient. And I know that that's somewhat broad and vague. What does that mean? But the idea is you want to see Justin Fields as a quarterback that is winning you games, that is winning situations for you, winning drives for you, not that you are winning with him. Not to bring up any specific team, but I have to a little bit here. You look at a quarterback like Tua Tagovailoa in Miami. That's a situation there where they had crafted an entire offense around him last year, an RPO-centric offense. And they had a negative EPA in, I think, all but 2 games. And you're looking at that team that's going on a win streak. And it felt very reminiscent of Mitchell Trubisky 2 years ago when they're playing the Jaguars and the Texans, and they're playing these weak teams and they're going on a win streak. And you're looking at it and saying, yeah, but everything's trying to be set up to the strengths of this guy. And it feels like we're winning with him, but not because of him. And I think that for me to feel comfortable at the end of the next season, I need to be looking at Justin Fields and going, no, that the team is not only his, but I know that every time we step out there with Justin Fields, the quarterback, there's going to be an understanding that that game is up for grabs, no matter the injuries, no matter who you're playing, because you have a supernova at the quarterback position, the most important position in sports.
Well said. Don, your thoughts, please.
Well, I think for me, I want to see consistent growth every week. Thought we were seeing that last year until he got injured. I thought he won the San Francisco game when he ran that ball in. The defense couldn't hold. And same thing in Pittsburgh. Those were games won by Justin Fields, I thought. So I don't have any fear that he's the kind of quarterback to win with. I'm pretty sure he's the quarterback that makes you win. And that is what I want to see. And that comes from growth. Stopping the fumbles itself is a huge step in that process. He's getting quicker at reading the defenses. You could see that happening last year. I don't think the lights fully clicked on for him yet, but you can see he's making progress. And he really has sped up his delivery. His delivery was a classic baseball pitcher's throw, where you just break and your arms are out wide long, and that is slow. He sped that up a lot already. I can see it.
Yep,
So,
there you go.
and he still seems just as accurate. So I'm good with him.
Well, one more thing. You talked about baseball. It reminded me of his sliding. That dude needs to lay out when he slides, or he's going to get laid out when he slides.
Yes.
When
He
I saw
slides
him do that
exactly
slide
like
and get
I
hit in
used
the
to.
head, I was like, "Oh, bud, man, your career is going to be about 3 years. You keep that up."
There were
Yep.
a handful of plays last year where I thought to myself, "Oh, we lost our quarterback. He's gone for the rest of his career," because he took some amazing hits last season. So hopefully, that's one of the things he's been working on off season, and the Bears will continue to work with him on is protecting himself. Scott, what are your thoughts about Mr. Justin Fields?
Yeah. So just want to point something out. So say you're not a Bears fan, right? And you type up Justin Fields highlights. He's scrambling for 75% of the time, fighting for yards. And obviously that's O-line scheme, everything going on. I just want to see consistent growth. Completions, got to get the completions up. That's obviously going to come with scheme, personnel, O-line. I just don't. I don't love the scrambling like 80% of the time, but that's obviously what I just said. So just cleaning up and hope he's our guy. Yep.
Thanks, guys. Tony, what do you think?
Yeah, shout out to Don Burr. What I would see as success is just beating the shit out of the Detroit Lions all year long. Continue to run the score up nonstop.
Trubisky did that, bro. That don't show us shit.
Kill him every game.
The Lion Slayer, man.
Like I don't know that in his mind the Lions are about to be on a turning point and become this all of a sudden winning franchise. I don't see it. Continue
Rebuilding
to
since
beat the living
1953.
shit out of the Lions. If he can do that, continue to put up points against the Lions, I'm happy.
There you go, Tony. Well said. Guys, I need to cut this short because I've got another show that starts at 9:00. It's the Science Fiction Show. So if you are a lover of science fiction movies, Salim Sudarwala, who's also on the network with his Bulls Gold show, and Carl Ames are going to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It's a very popular franchise. This movie is making millions of dollars, and they're going to review it. I can tell you that they both loved it. And then they're also going to dissect the new trailer for the movie Thor. So that's going to be interesting. Those guys, they love their Marvel and science fiction movies so much that they actually look at the trailer and then grab photographs from it, screen grabs of it, and then look for little clues as to what the storyline might be. So that's going to start at 9:00 Central in 20 minutes. And I got a promise for you guys. This is not going to be the last time we will do this. We're going to do this much more often, just talk football with you guys and other people in the chat. or anyone else that wants to join us, we'll figure out a way to get as many people in and do these confabs, these barroom talks. And I promise you, we'll start swearing from the very beginning of the show to the very end of the show.
I mean, nobody told me I wasn't allowed to swear. I apologize if I wasn't.
No.
I just wish I knew earlier you could.
You're from Chicago, Don. You don't need permission to swear.
Yeah, well, true.
But all of you guys were great. You came in well prepared, offered insight that I know everyone in the chat was really intrigued by, and lots of positive remarks. I think the only player that really astounded anybody was Vinny's pick of Daniel Falele, right, whose name I might have messed up. But that is it for today. Guys, again, thank you very much, and we'll be back here soon.
Hey, thank you, Aldo.
You got it.
Thanks, Aldo.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Aldo.
you.
Take care, everybody.
Bear down.